Welcome back to Small Caps. My name once again is Kerry Stevenson, and today we're going to talk about my favourite subject. That's called gold. And I am talking with the Managing Director of Marvel Gold, Mr. Phil Hoskins. Marvellous to see you, Phil. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Very good. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Kerry.
Yeah, good to see you. Your ASX code is MVL. We've got a lot to talk about today. But before we get stuck into it, Phil, this is the first time you've been speaking to our investors on small caps. Who are Marvel Gold? Just give us a brief overview and then we'll get stuck into the detail.
Yeah, for sure. So Marvel Gold is a Mali-focused gold explorer. For the last 12 months, we've been exploring for gold in Mali. We've got nearly 1 million ounces at our main project there, the Tabakorole project, over a very large land holding. It's open in both directions. So a lot of resource upside there and also a lot of good regional exploration potential. Some excellent gold exploration opportunities in Mali. Strangely, we also still own a Tanzanian graphite asset that's construction ready, fully permitted DFS level project. And our shareholders have agreed to spin that asset off. We're about a month away from releasing the prospectus on that. So that's sort of the steak knives here. That's a bit of upside for our shareholders coming from that as well.
And how many shares on issue? Just over 500,000?
508 million. Yeah,
508 million shares on issue. Well funded, about 5 million in the bank.
We had 3 at the last quarterly, but this spin-off is going to net us $2 million of cash, as well as the $10 million worth of shares in the new co that we'll get out of that. So no immediate need.
Let's start off, as I said, marvellous Marvel Gold. Let's start off with the projects that you've got with Marvel Gold, and then we'll move on to the Graphite project, which to me sounds like is an extra opportunity, which is possibly not even being recognised at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start off. You've got a couple of projects in Mali and a very large land holding. How long has Marvel Gold been around?
Well, up until mid-2020, it was known as Graphex Mining when it was developing that graphite asset in Tanzania. But sort of this reincarnation as Marvel Gold's really only been for 12 months, and that was when we acquired the first 2 of those gold projects in Mali.
Okay, so let's talk about those projects. Now I'm going to try and say it right. Tabakorole.
Spot on. Well done.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. I can say it. Tabakorole. That is emerging as quite a significant project in Mali. Let's talk about that and what you've been doing over the past 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. When we picked up the asset, it had a 594,000 ounce resource at 1 gram per tonne with no network or anything on a 100 square kilometre licence. And in the 12 months, we've, advanced on all fronts there. In September, we released an upgraded resource of 910,000 ounces at 1.2 grams per tonne. We've done the met work since. About 90% of that resource sits in fresh rock, so it was very important for us to do the bottle roll test work and confirm it was non-refractory. We did that work and the met results were excellent. Very high recoveries even on a coarser grind, so it'll be very simple and low cost processing.
Okay.
We've also sought to grow the land holding. So we started with 100 square kilometres. We're now at 392. I expect
sorry to interrupt, Phil. First of all, why did you expand it by so much? Because that's quite big, 100 to 390. Why so much? Is this along a shear zone that you think is highly prospective? What's the rationale behind that expansion? Because that's a big land holding.
I think you've done your research. You must have done your research. So there's a structure coming through the south of Mali called the Banafin shear zone. Yep. It's the same shear zone that the Marilla 7 million ounce deposit that Firefinch have just taken off Barrick is a northwest trending structure coming off that. So further down the Banafin shear zone, about 90 kilometres further down to the south of Marilla is where we are. And there's this northwest trending sort of splay coming off that shear zone that really excites us. We're also too far to truck our material to another operation. And so our view, long-term sort of strategy of this asset is to hopefully find enough gold that can underpin its own standalone mining operation there. And so what's, I guess, very important in our ability to do that is to obviously find enough gold resources that can convert into reserves. And so that's why expanding this land holding and then really getting stuck into some of the regional exploration as well was we deemed to be very important.
You mentioned earlier that Marvel Gold used to be called Graphite. I want to know, how did you come across this gold project? Who owned it beforehand, and why did you move the focus to this area and this particular commodity?
Yeah, so we were looking for sort of what next after the graphite asset had sort of come into some troubles. We had a debt over the graphite asset, and anyway, we had to ring fence all that to the side, and we're really starting again with a blank canvas with sort of no equity value, no cash. And so the deals we were looking to do were earning or deferred consideration type deals. We definitely wanted to get into the gold space, which was going very well. You'll recall last year. The assets were introduced to us by our major shareholder, Capital DI, or previously known as Capital Drilling. They were our largest shareholder as Graphite and continue to be our largest shareholder. And they had done these earning joint ventures on Tabakorole and Lecanfla with a UK listed company called Altus Strategies. And so Altus are a royalty generator and project generator. And we basically bought our way into those joint ventures and from there have begun earning our interest in both projects.
Sounds like it's quite complex, but it's probably not.
Yeah, maybe I made that a bit harder than it needed to be. We bought our joint venture interests off our major shareholder, and since then we've been increasing our interest in both projects through the exploration that we're doing.
Okay, so you mentioned Capital Drilling, and they're a big shareholder. Are they doing an earn-in by doing some of the exploration drilling on the project?
They're not. We've bought the interest off them. So that they had gone to the point. So they're a drilling and mining services company. They have also started making a lot of direct investments in listed entities. I think that book probably stands at $30 or $35 million now. They've then gone a step further and started doing their own earning deals, and we basically bought into that. But they're very well set up in Mali. They've got 20 drill rigs there, 150 staff, and we wouldn't have been able to get established as quickly as we have if we didn't have their support. And so they're very big in a lot of West African companies as well. Predictive Discovery is one that's been a really interesting story recently, and they're the cornerstone investor there, and a number of other West African gold stories. So,
what's it like in West Africa? Because I know that recently Resolute had a couple of challenges. I think investors that are listening to this, jurisdiction's always on the minds of people. What's it like in Mali? Are you concerned with anything that's going on there, and is COVID impacting at all?
Yeah, we're stated in our sort of tagline as we're a Mali-focused gold explorer. We have questioned whether we would look to acquire other projects outside of Mali in other West African countries, but we're very happy in Mali. It's had a very stable mining code. It's been a stable mining jurisdiction for a long period of time. There was a military coup there during the last year. But it was quite interesting how quickly investor sentiment rebounded after that, once the pathway towards democratic elections was established. There are added security risks compared to doing businesses in say, Tanzania. But where we are in the southern part of Mali doesn't tend to experience or any risks from terrorism or any of those sorts of things. That's well up in the northern part of the country. So in terms of COVID, so we've accomplished a lot in the last 12 months in Mali, and a lot of that comes down to our expat exploration manager who lives in Côte d'Ivoire across the border. He's a PhD level geologist and has been on the ground and built an excellent team to carry out all the work programs we've been doing. And so, it's COVID hasn't slowed us down, and nor has some of those political issues as well.
Well, it clearly hasn't, because you've increased, as we said before, from 100 square kilometres to 390 square kilometres. What's the news flow that's going to start coming out? What's getting you excited? How much, I know there's lots of questions. How much exploration are you doing? And is it shallow, or are you going quite deep? I'm trying to paint a picture of what you think is there and how you're going to grow this potential resource.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there are a lot of questions in there. So the 900,000 ounce resource was in September. We've drilled probably 9,000 metres of RC or diamond since then, that will go into a resource upgrade. So that program will conclude at the end of July. And so we'll have an upgraded resource by September. I expect the resource will push sort of well past the 1 million ounces. And there's a few other opportunities around the existing strike to continue to grow that. But that existing strike's not going to go to 2 million ounces, as an example. So the regional exploration is very important to us. I think we've collected a regional data set this year that would be the envy of many junior companies. We collected high resolution ground magnetics because in this part of Mali, the magnetics is very good at identifying the structures. Obviously, gold follows the structures. And the other thing we committed to was multi-element soil geochemistry. So we've covered the entire 392 square kilometres with, soil sampling, but then assayed that for 48 elements. And what that helps you to do is, whilst gold can be mobile and sort of move around in the soil profiles, there's a lot of pathfinder elements that are less mobile, and particularly at Tabakorole, things like arsenic, tungsten, tellurium are the signatures for that mineralisation. And we recently announced the results of all of that soil work, and it shows multiple targets that have that same signature. So we're highly confident over the next 12 months that we'll be able to make new discoveries using those targets. And so, yeah, where's it going to head? I think we can definitely grow the resource from here to the point where we think we can underpin a standalone operation. And in terms of news flow, the immediate news flow will be around continued land consolidation. We're looking to grow that land holding in that regional structural corridor that we think is very prospective. The drill results from the current program, I think they should be some of the best results we've had for the year.
Sorry to interrupt you, Phil. Has there been much drilling prior to you guys? Is this all, as we like to say, virgin ground? Has there been much work done in this area that you've got, because it's quite extensive?
Well, so in the deposit area, there has been. This is sort of back in 2007 to 2010. I'd say there was probably 50,000 metres put into this deposit, but it was at a time when gold prices were much lower. So, yeah, a 1.2 gram per tonne deposit back then probably didn't get many people excited. Even now, it's still at the lower grade end, and it's the other attributes of the project that we feel can make it developable. It is its surface. It's good, consistent thicknesses. The metallurgy was excellent, like I said before, and so we think it can be a low strip and relatively low cost operation. But we're not thinking development at this stage. We're definitely we're only a year into it. We've got many targets to grow the resource, and we really just want to see how big it can get.
You mentioned before, here we go. I'm going to try Lacanfla.
Lacanfla, yeah, that's it.
Oh, I got it again. Lacanfla. Lacanfla is also another project. Are you doing much on that, or is the focus on Tabakorole?
There's no doubt that I think the best bang for our buck in terms of spending our money is on adding ounces at Tabakorole. The Lacanfla project, when we got into it, had a very specific target in mind, what was known as a cast target. I won't get into it, but it was sort of potential multi-million ounce deposits a bit deeper, very much like the Yatela project, 35 kilometres to the north of it. But this asset does sit contiguous with Sadiola, which is the largest gold mine in Mali, and it's only 6 kilometres away from the pits there. And so it's sitting in an excellent location. There's a non-JORC resource of about 100,000 ounces there already. We think a long strike from that. We did the same data sets, the multi-element soil geochemistry. We think that probably continues. That there could be maybe 200,000 ounces there, which does have value when you've got a mill over the road at Sadiola.
That's handy.
And equally, that multi-element soil geochemistry has teased out a number of other targets as well, including 39 grams per tonne gold in one of the soil samples. So I think it's going back to more traditional target styles rather than the karst. The karst, whilst we had some encouraging results, wasn't what we'd hoped for there. It's certainly not dead. We think there's more to be followed up, but yeah, I think Tabakorole is certainly the focus for us moving forward.
Okay, I think any other news in the gold area for the Marvelous Marvel Gold?
Yeah, look, I think it's the drill results and it's the resource in September. And on those drill results, we're drilling in the central part of the deposit and in the northwestern part of the deposit. The central part of the deposit, some of the drilling we've done this year has identified new zones, new higher grade zones that are quite shallow as well. And so that's what we're following up now. Up in the northwestern part of the deposit, again, we think there's a 700 metre long zone of mineralisation sitting outside of the previously modelled resource. So this will be great for adding ounces, and it's great that it's shallow and higher grade as well. So yeah, we think that news flow on the gold will be quite strong over the next few months.
When you say higher grade, have you got anything that you can mention about that? Anything that's
so in the northwest, there was 16 metres at 2 grams. In the central zone, it was sort of 20 metres at 1.8, 22 metres at 1.9. So up near the 2 gram sort of range. So much higher than the global resource grade at the deposit already.
Do you think if you dig deeper, if you drill a little bit deeper, do you think that there's the opportunity for discovery of a higher grade zone?
Yeah, whether it's higher grade or not, yeah, we'd have to see. The deposit is open at depth. We've chosen not to drill deeper holes at this stage. We've only been trying to drill the resources that sit within that would be open pittable. Right. So we've obviously done internal pit optimizations to understand what that would look like, and that's sort of guided where we've been drilling. But there's no doubt there is depth potential. There was a 9 metres at 11 grams at about 250 metres from surface. So that's certainly for follow-up in the future.
Okay, well, there's clearly lots of news flow from the gold projects. It would be remiss of me, before we finished up, not to talk about Evolution Energy Minerals. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we thought that we were just bringing you a gold story. Actually, here's something that slipped under the radar for me anyway. Now, Phil, Evolution Energy Minerals, this is a graphite project. Can you just explain, because I think there's some added value here that perhaps people aren't aware of.
Yeah, there really is. When you have a construction-ready DFS level, fully permitted graphite asset sitting in a company called Marvel Gold, I think a lot of people have forgotten that we have that asset. Now, I personally developed that asset from first drill hole in 2014. Spent over 200 days in China trying to market the product and understand the different graphite markets. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, we had a private equity financier who had conditionally agreed to provide $80 million in construction funding, both debt and equity. That fell over largely due to COVID. They were one of the largest owners of commercial aircraft in the world. And unfortunately, the transaction we had with them at the time, we had a debt with them. We had a what's grown now to a $9.5 million debt. So we pushed all that to the side. We agreed to run a process for that private equity group to sell or refinance that asset, and that's when we became Marvel Gold. And over the last 6 months, the battery metals sector has really come back with a bang, and we've fielded a lot of inbound investor inquiry. And a couple of months ago, made the decision that we would spin the asset off into Evolution Energy Minerals. And we had shareholder approval a few weeks ago to do that, where we're now a few weeks away from putting the prospectus out there, and I feel it's going to go very well. I can touch on the parameters later, but we're working on quite a significant cornerstone to come in, and Cornerstone, the spin-off, looking to raise $22 million in that company. The important thing for Marvel is that we'll take $2 million outside of getting that debt repaid. We'll also get $2 million in cash and $10 million worth of shares in that new company. And so on our shares of 508 million, that $12 million worth of value is 2.4 cents a share. So it's a pretty handy little sort of bonus for Marvel shareholders.
Well, let me just try and unpack this a little bit as well. So you're going to spin this off in the next few weeks. I love your ASX code, EV1, ladies and gentlemen, electric vehicles 1, EV1. So that'll be
pretty hot code.
If people are interested, how can they find out some more?
We obviously can't pre-market IPOs until the prospectus is out there. So the prospectus should be lodged in the next few weeks. There'll be all the information will be in there about the project, the DFS, the fact it's fully permitted. Hopefully details about the Cornerstone investor and also what the strategy for the asset is.
And will that prospectus be on the Marvel Gold website?
Yeah, and I expect that Evolution will by that time have its own website and be available there.
Okay.
So it really is. It's a world-class asset. I don't use those terms lightly. It's one of the coarsest flake graphite deposits in the world. It's high grade. There's a $331 million US NPV, and Graphex had spent $21 million on drilling and studies. That DFS was done for a Western financier, so it was done to a very high standard, and this is why we're able to attract the caliber of investors that I'm sort of fielding inquiries from at the moment.
So Phil, just let me fully understand this. The only reason that this is happening now is because that investment fell over due to COVID back in the day, because these guys are leasing aircraft, obviously no one's flying, and they're like, we can't spend $80 million. So that kind of parked the project. Is that correct? That's
right. It wasn't a negative reflection on the quality of the project or the state of the coarse flake graphite market or anything like that. They had that to deal with. There were also other mining investments they'd made that hadn't gone that well, and I guess we were the unlucky one that copped it from that.
Lucky or unlucky? Maybe it's lucky because this is giving, first of all, Marvel Gold shareholders some upside, and number one, and number two, there's a lot of interest, and obviously the green revolution, the electric vehicles are really starting to ramp up. So sometimes it's all in the timing, Phil.
No, absolutely right. I mentioned it sort of means 2.4 cents a share to our shareholders. That IPO only needs to double, and it's sort of 4.8 cents a share to our shareholders. And basically, when you're buying Marvel at 5 cents, you're pretty much getting the gold for free. I do expect that. Yeah, I expect that spin-off to go very well. It's coming on at a $21 million enterprise value, and you look at the peer group in Tanzania with construction-ready graphite assets are anywhere from sort of $60 to $250 million market caps. So extraordinary.
And as you say, it's got, it's DFS level, it's fully permitted, it's construction ready, all the work's been done, just ready to go, which is pretty exciting. Okay, Phil, we're running out of time.
Yep.
If we could just finish up with, let our investors know why, in fact, I think you've already done it. Right now is a good time because of this spin-off of this asset, which, as you've just explained, but any other final comments for our investor audience today?
Yeah, look, I think you look at the peer comps in our presentation, but I think if we were just a gold company, I feel we would be cheap for what we have. If we were just a graphite company, I think we would be cheap for what we have. But we do have both, where we are separating them to be able to daylight that value for our shareholders. And we've got very strong news flow on both fronts over the next 3 months. So, yeah, look, I think it's an excellent opportunity right now. I think it's because I've been sort of head down in prospectuses and things. I probably haven't been out marketing enough. I need to do more interviews with you, Kerry. But yeah, I'll be telling the story a lot more going forward. And I think the more people that, the more eyeballs on this story, the more we'll start to get that recognition.
Well, I tell you, I think it's pretty exciting, and you heard it here on Small Caps First, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Hoskins from Marvel Gold. I've got to finish up with this. Marvellous to chat to you today.
Thank you for using that tagline, Kerry. Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Phil.
Okay, bye.